Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Respecting the Beer. We're continuing our conversation with Ken Grossman, so let's just get right into it.
Speaking of areas that are outside of your area when brewing beer, when I was at the Chico facility in 2008, I arrived and I was stunned at a parking facility that was literally completely enveloped with what I've now known to be more than 10,000 solar panels. Can you talk a little bit about your journey in renewable energy and the focus that you've had on that? Because I really think it's one of the more admirable things that you've done, in addition to making Celebration Ale, obviously. And it's kind of an extraordinary thing. And when I was on my tour in 2008, I think it was Steve that told us that in a normal cycle, it's not uncommon for you to put more energy back into the grid than you use.
Yeah, so actually going back to the very early years, and a lot of, I guess, my knowledge or ability around repurposing and innovating was really driven out of necessity. I mean, we didn't have any money. One of the very first things I bought was a lathe that allowed me to recycle a lot of old stainless steel parts and fittings. So I would buy scrap pipe and chop the ends off and reface them and do the same with valves. And without any resources, I really had to come up with ways to save money, save energy. And one of the first things I put in was an ice bank, an ice builder, which I'd picked up scrap at some auction somewhere. And the intent of it was to store energy off peak. And there had been some incentive money that PG&E had at the time to help you pay for things like ice storage. And so we had this big system that was pretty common to find in dairies and other plants that have real high thermal loads for short periods of time when you're cooling milk or doing something. And brewing beer fits that well because you're cooling wort. And back then I was only brewing initially one batch a day and then eventually 3 or 4. So you need a lot of cooling capacity, but just for an hour or so. And so I put in an ice storage bank back probably in 83 or 4, and allowed us to have a small compressor. The building we were in didn't have a lot of power, so I had to be very careful about not overloading the small servers that ran the whole brewery. And so ice storage seemed like a really win-win. I got some incentive money to do it, and it did lower our overall energy demand. So as we got into moving out of that original plant into the main Chico brewery, we call it 20th Street Brewery now, I did start thinking about, what should I be doing now that I'm building a new plant? And so, high efficiency motors, and started looking at refrigeration to improve efficiency with that. And, as we got more resources, financial and otherwise, I really started to think that as a manufacturer who uses a lot of energy, and brewing industry is pretty energy intensive, that we better be good stewards. And so I did continue to invest in that area. We put in fuel cells. I'm not sure if when you were there and fuel cells were something you saw, but we put in a megawatt of fuel cells. We were a real early adopter of that. We do have over 10,000 solar panels. We have 2 megawatts of turbines producing electricity. They're cogen turbines, so we're capturing the heat off them and making steam. And they're fed with a mixture of biogas from our wastewater treatment and natural gas. And then when I was designing Mills River, I wanted to see, I guess, how far we could go with it. And so our plan was to have a LEED silver building. And then we decided, we could probably hit gold halfway through the project. And then we eventually went for platinum. And so we're I think the only production platinum LEED brewery in the U.S. So it did allow me, when you're doing a grounds up project like that, to put a lot of thought into how you make the operations efficient as possible. it's just been part of our ethos. And again, something as a manufacturer, I feel, an obligation to pay attention to, using resources wisely.
Well, not only are you doing that, but in hearing you talk about it, there's a great sense of, I think, pride that you have in it.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's even more admirable than just doing it out of necessity. You're doing it from a perspective of pride.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't done out of necessity, because I certainly didn't need to jump through all those hoops, but it was something that we felt as a leader in the industry, and we feel we are a leader, certainly in the craft industry, that, setting a good example for ourselves, our employees, our customers, really is important. So it's been something that's close to my heart, and I'm off grid at my home right now. I've got my own hydroelectric plant that I built.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
Of course you do. Now,
He's queued up the Patagonia question.
he has.
He's put it right on a tee.
He has. And I'm going to have you ask this. It's number 15, because you came up with this. This was not me.
But it's not really my words.
And
here on
it
the
is
sheet.
fantastic.
You're familiar with Yvon Chouinard and Patagonia,
Oh, yeah.
right? And it feels like you embody that same ethos. And I've always wondered, and he had his own words to describe how he is using the capitalist system. I don't want to say against itself, but he understood at some point that he is an entrepreneur. He never wanted to call himself that. But when he embraced it, he realized he could do really good things within his own mindset of what the world should be, while functioning as a capitalist in a capitalistic society. I don't know if there really is anywhere. I don't know what my question really is. I guess you have any comments on that? Because you've been able to do this. You didn't have to invest. You didn't have to make these investments that you've been making towards efficiencies in the environment, towards your employees, and even to some extent toward the quality of your product. You could have invested heavily in the marketing. You could have just done that and made out really well with that. So I don't know. I'm not asking a question. I'm wondering what your comments might be on your feelings toward your approach to business that way.
I just gave a talk at our 45th anniversary party last Saturday, and pulled up a slide out of my original business plan, and it had one small paragraph devoted to marketing, and most of it was devoted to production and brewing beer. And I mean, for me, when I got into the business, it was, not with the idea I was going to get rich. I mean, the idea was I hoped I could survive and build a brewery that would support myself and my family, and didn't really, have driving business as my goal. I just wanted to make great beer. I think that's really been with us from the beginning. We are brewers first. We love the product. We love the alchemy of turning, raw materials into a wonderful product. And so that really is what drove me. And again, as a, I've been composting for years. We raise our own chickens, and we've been sort of a little back to the land mentality for the past 50 years. And so for me, it just, doing what we did with the business, it just fits who we are personally, and I guess how we want to, live our lives and run our business.
And it seems like you've been able to survive as an individual capitalist at a time in which collective capitalism seems to be required, but you seem to consistently chart your own course. You set your own agenda, you set your own goals. And I think it's one of the things about Sierra Nevada that I think everybody looks at with great favor.
Yeah, I mean, the last 40 plus years, 45 or more, almost 50 now, it has not been easy. Those of you who are in the industry know the challenges and certainly the headwinds that the industry faces today. It's not been a straight line for the Sierra Nevada or for the industry in general. I mean, there's ups and downs, and there's booms and busts, and we're in a bit of a shakeout, challenging period now with the brewers really struggling. Some business models don't work very well with the way the economy is, and so it's been an interesting ride. I must say I wouldn't want to do anything else. There's no other I guess, venture that I wish I would have done other than being a brewer. I'm pretty happy with how it all worked out, but it's been, certainly a lot of challenges and certainly a lot of work.
And it's a perfect time to bring up the slogan you guys have been running with for several years now: family owned, operated, and argued over. I think that it means something to people buying the beer off the shelf, but it means a lot to people who own breweries too. I think we understand that, small operations that are family owned and operated the same way.
Yeah.
And we're all committed to something, and you can't really sell it to someone that doesn't have it in their DNA. They have to want it somewhere deep inside.
Yeah, I mean, having a family business is got its challenges, just like any family dynamic. There's ups and downs, and we don't really argue. Our family gets along great.
I understand the academic definition there. Yeah.
We do have sometimes very strong discussions, though, about we're all wanting to do the right thing for the business and the right thing for the family, and that right thing may be a little different in everybody's minds. But in the end, we want to do what's best for everyone.
I got a business question. We've talked about the history of American brewing on the show a bunch of times, and to oversimplify, early 20th century, there were a lot of breweries in the United States, especially here in Wisconsin. Every medium-sized community had its own brewery. Over the course of the 20th century, especially after World War II, you saw consolidation in the industry. You get to like the 1970s, and there's really only a handful of large breweries for the most part.
Yep.
And that inflection point is kind of the creation of Sierra Nevada. And so when you started, you had to face a whole bunch of problems that someone starting a brewery today wouldn't have to face because there's a whole industry surrounding it. What were some of those problems that were unique to what you had to face when you started that, say, someone today wouldn't really have to deal with?
You're right. I mean, when we started, 1980 was, I think, the year of the low point of American breweries since Prohibition. I've got a chart that shows there were 43 licensed breweries in end of 81. And out of that 43, 6 of them were startup breweries. So that was us and New Albion and DeBarker Brewing and River City and Cartwright and and Boulder. There were 6 players that had come into the scene from 1977 to 81. And all of us really were, other than one, nobody was a commercial brewer. Nobody had been a commercial brewer or worked in the brewing industry. We were all home brewers. Jim Schloter, who started River City, he went to Davis and had worked at a big brewery. But besides that, we were all totally unknown to what it would take to run a brewery. Even getting a license back then was not easy to get licensed. They hadn't licensed a new brewery in so many years that the ABC people didn't know what to do. The TTB really didn't have a clue. So that's where we started, with just label approval and figuring out all the stuff that we really didn't have any exposure or knowledge of. And then on top of that, the consumer didn't know what we were doing. They thought these funky beers with half-inch of sediment in the bottom and all that were not fit to drink. And so just educating the consumers about there being something different than light lager beer. If you were a normal beer drinker, that's all you were exposed to. So that was certainly a lot of work, and we did beer festivals and hopefully got written up in some articles and talked about what we were doing. Obviously Fritz Maytag had broken some of that ground for us. He bought Anchor in 65 and started packaging a few years after that. So Fritz was getting some PR and press, and there was starting to be some knowledge of craft beer and craft brewing. But educating the consumer, and then we all had to do the same with the retailers and with their, the wholesale tier. Try to, let them understand what we were doing. We didn't have a big budget to market. We didn't have any salespeople. And so just really trying to get your beer in front of people was hugely difficult back in that era. And then, the 3-tier system, depending on what state you were in, that dictated a lot of, how your product got to market. At least in California, we were able to self-distribute. So we started distributing ourselves in Chico. And then as soon as we needed to expand the market, we started to try to find distributors that would, one, be willing to take our beer, and two, hopefully do a good job. So there was a huge amount of work that it took just to get your beer in front of people.
Ken, you mentioned New Albion. I know that Jack McAuliffe, to all of the brewers in the Bay Area, has a really special place. I'm wondering if you can talk about his influence that he had on you.
Sure. Yeah, so I was running the homebrew shop 77, and Jack was just getting started building New Albion. And I had been to one of the first beer and wine trade shows that was held in Oakland, I think right about that time, and met Fritz Maytag, ended up touring the Anchor Brewery, and Fred Eckhart, who some of you may know was a early beer journalist and beer writer, and written the first book sort of on American lager brewing. And so I met all these people, and then decided to make a pilgrimage to New Albion, which it was just getting going, and arranged a tour there. Met Jack and saw what he had built, which really was a glorified homebrew setup out of a bunch of cast-off equipment. He was using 55-gallon stainless steel syrup drums as fermenters, and he had built his own wort cooler, an open bone cooler. And so I saw what he had put together. I thought, I think I can do this. And I could see he was struggling with the volume he was producing. He was producing about 1.5 barrels per batch, and one batch a day. And he had a partner, Susie Stern, and another investor. I talking to him, he wasn't making enough money to survive. And so when I saw what he was doing, I thought, well, you need to be at least 10 barrels, I thought. I don't know why I came up with that number, but at least on paper, it seemed like 10 barrels was enough volume that you could hopefully support yourself. And so I learned from Jack, basically, he was the pioneer who went from home brewing to commercial brewing. I was able to, I guess, witness what he had done right, what he had done wrong, and the volume was certainly something that needed to be addressed. He just couldn't, pay the bills for two of them based on 1.5 barrels a day. So I guess I learned some good experiences. I went down a number of times and visited him. And back in that time when we were getting started brewing, there was, say, only 6 of us, and Fritz Maytag would invite everybody down for their annual Thanksgiving event where they gathered the distributors and other people at the brewery, and he started inviting all the small brewers. And so I got to be, fairly close with everybody who was in business at that time who made it down to the brewery. So
was he a kindred spirit for you in terms of innovation and tinkering?
He certainly was a tinkerer. He had been a merchant marine, and he did build a lot of stuff. I sold him my very first bottling line came out of Needles, California. It was an old soft drink line from the 40s that was really primitive, but it had a bottle washer and a single head filler and some other equipment that I paid $1,500 for. Actually, I think I paid $1,000 for, and then had to pay $700 to ship it. When I got all the equipment back to Chico, I realized it wasn't going to work for a brewery, but the bottle washer was the same as Jack had. So he came up to Chico and he took all the parts off of it that he thought he could use for spare parts for his machine, and ended up hauling the rest to the scrapyard. So we had a relationship. I wouldn't say we were close, but we certainly, and he wasn't in business that much after that. He tried to raise money to expand and was unable to, and eventually, exited the industry.
One of my favorite logos of all time was that New Albion logo.
Yeah, Benny and Russian River has a sign, has his original sign.
Yeah, I was. It was nice to see when Jack had passed. Was it last year?
I know, a couple of months ago. I think it was
months ago?
maybe in June or so.
There was a connection that he and Vinny had renewed.
Yep.
Near the end there.
Yeah, when we did our 30th anniversary celebration, I actually reached out to Jack, tracked him down, and brought him to Chico, and we did 4 special beers. I did one with Fritz, did one with Charlie Papazian, one with Jack, and one with Fred Eckhart.
So that kind of leads me to an important question. Here in Appleton, Wisconsin, the breweries are not by and large competitive. They are collaborative. Do you feel that in the Bay Area that you guys had culture, created a culture of collaboration rather than competition?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to sort of the state of the brewing industry at the time. Brewers were helping brewers, and there were not very many of us. Fritz would reach out to Coors if he needed technology help, or we actually bought malted barley from Coors when the whole nitrosamine thing was happening. And so there was a lot of camaraderie, and Fritz tells a story of how he was so small, he didn't have his own yeast propagation capabilities, and so he would go to a different San Francisco brewery every month and get a yeast culture from a different brewery. He didn't even bother the same brewery twice, but breweries were willing to give you a yeast culture if you needed it. So from that standpoint, and Fritz was very helpful to us as well. I remember reaching out to Bill Coors and him offering to, let me use his library, and they actually quoted on some fermenters for us they were going to build. So there was a lot of goodwill, and I think the production people have always gotten along well and are willing and able to help each other out. Sales guys maybe not so much, but the production guys for sure.
Well, I was struck by a section of your book where you talked about a time in which there was a disruption in the hop cycle, and breweries were kind of scrambling to produce enough hops, and your brewery had said, okay, we have this type of a purchasing plan. We'd like to help people out so that you don't have to change your recipes, you don't have to modify the integrity of your beer. That stuck with me. I thought that was kind of done in the spirit of friendship and collaboration. And I think that's one of the things that makes brewing unique.
Yeah, I talk to people in other industries, and they won't speak to their competitors and have a real wall around what they'll share. Brewers globally even generally share and help each other out. So I think it is unique to our industry.
Okay, I've got a couple of key questions that are going to start to wind us down here. Are you ready for these?
Sure.
These are big. Okay. What is on your Mount Rushmore of beer? Not people, but if Ken Grossman is stranded on an island somewhere and he's only granted 4 beers, all of which are cold, what are the 4?
My beers or anybody's beers?
Any 4 beers. For example, I'll give you mine. Mine are your Celebration Ale, your green, and I don't even call it pale ale. I'll just call it green. Vinny's Blind Pig, and Bobby Fleshman's 547. If I have those 4 beers,
you're good.
I'm good. Like whatever happens, whatever befalls me, I'm good. Things are good.
Well, 2 of them on there, Pale and Celebration, certainly would be on my list.
I knew they were.
Yeah. Torpedo would probably be there too. I'm going to use my own beers because I have enough friends in the industry. I don't want to pick one of them over another one.
Well done.
Well played. Say that. But yeah, Torpedo. And then I'm pretty fond of like our Kellerweiss, which I know is a slight polarizing style, but I just had one last week in North Carolina, and that's a wonderful beer.
Okay, I just lost a bet with Bobby because I said if you were to name 4 of your beers, that your 4th beer, his guess was the Bigfoot.
Uh-huh.
My guess was, I think you're a big fan of the Summerfest Lager.
I am. Actually, those...
I love that beer.
Yeah, I didn't have a lager on there, but and I don't know if you've had our new pills, but it's coming out.
New format, right? Yep. 8.4 ounce, is that right?
Yeah. My son's project.
Yeah.
And quite tasty as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you could open a green door to any place with anyone at any time with any beer, Who are you drinking a beer with? What's the beer? What's the situation?
Wow.
And it can't be me at a dead show with a Sierra Green. It's going to have to be something different.
Maybe I'm a big fan of the Big Lebowski.
Oh my God.
boy.
I am the dude. Like, seriously, dude, you're talking to the dude.
I'd like to have a beer with the dude.
Oh, I love it. So you're
Wasn't
talking
it White Russian with the dude?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
Russian. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you're
there's a lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what have yous.
right. And I'm telling you what, Ken, that cabinetry ties the entire room together. You know? So you're drinking a beer with Jeff Bridges. What are you drinking?
Probably a pale.
Not a celebration.
Well, it depends what time of year I'm eating them.
Okay.
Good point.
See, even he can't get celebration before
No,
October
and-
25th.
No, the hops have to be
knows the
harvested.
rule.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't want to be caught.
What's
with
the earliest you've
celebration
ever
in
had a
June.
celebration?
Oh, that I have? Well, probably, I don't know, maybe the very end of September, beginning of October.
So,
God, I
so we
wish I
can
was
work
you.
the Charlie angle. We can get some of this. He owes us a beer, I
we're
think.
going to leverage Charlie. Malted milk balls from Vern's and Chilton. Has he told you about the malted milk balls from Wisconsin?
I get a lot of those every year from Breeze.
I imagine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know what we're talking. Have you had a
Yeah.
better malted milk ball?
No, I haven't. They're wonderful.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
There you go.
Now, we've had a number of, I think, pretty significant beer guests on our show. We've got Vinny coming up. I think Bobby has hopefully arranged Michael Lewis from UC Davis coming on. Jamil
Jamil Zainashev will be
Yeah.
on.
is
Yep.
coming on.
Mm-hmm.
We're working really hard to get Garrett Oliver on as well. Whenever we've had people on, we've had John Keeling from Fuller's.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had who is our friend from
Mitch Steele.
yeah,
from
Mitch Steele.
Now
And
New
we've asked everyone the same question. And I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit because every single time I've asked this question, you're the first name that's mentioned. And the answer, the question is, and I'm going to get your answer, and you can put yourself on there. I would encourage you to do that. Who's on your Mount Rushmore of brewing people?
You know,
Bobby and I have a bet on this, so please answer appropriately.
I'm going to have to put Fritz on there because
Okay, we're both 1 for 1, Bobby.
he really did help start the industry. I'm going to put Vinny on it
2
because
for 2, Bobby.
I know we're friends, but I know he's one of the most talented brewers out there.
Pliny the Elder or Blind Pig? What's your preference?
Blind Pig probably over Pliny.
Oh my God!
What the heck?
What is happening right now?
Kindred.
Okay, all right. We had a Blind Pig last night while we were planning this discussion.
Yeah, I'd put Charlie Bamforth up there because I do think he's done a lot to truly foster knowledge in the brewing industry. And
Is this just to get him out of your office?
no, how many people can I have on Mount
4.
Rushmore? Well, 4.
Now you're on everybody's 4, so humility doesn't necessitate. that
Okay, I'll stick myself on there.
Okay,
There we go. Everyone
All
that's
right.
been asked the question has put King Grossman on.
Right. Everyone, people from Europe, home brewers, local brewers. You've been on every single list. I think the one person that didn't make your list, and I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about him, was Charlie Papazian.
You did mention him briefly.
Yeah, Charlie. I guess I came up before he came up as far as home brewing, so he wasn't the same kind of resource for me on the home brewing side that probably people who came after me did because I had figured things out on my own ahead of time. He was certainly instrumental in driving, the craft industry and driving homebrewing. And I view him more on the homebrewing side than on the commercial craft brewing side at this point. Although obviously, the organization was built around both of those endeavors. So yeah, he was an associate, but not necessarily a mentor to me.
Okay. We are communicating today from the great state of Wisconsin, which, as you know from your graphs, is kind to Sierra Nevada. What is your favorite Wisconsin beer?
Wow. I'm not sure I've got a particular favorite Wisconsin beer, but I've enjoyed a lot
Or
of
brewery.
Wisconsin
brewery.
beers. I'm not going to say one at this point because I don't want to offend anybody, but
Okay.
It's Old Milwaukee. We know.
yeah,
It better not be Old Milwaukee.
No,
I'm
it
just
is-
going to.
it is not. I mean,
Okay.
New Glarus obviously is probably at the top of the list.
Yeah, New Glarus for the folks in Wisconsin, they're pretty spectacular. Bobby, your thoughts on that?
Well, and I say this a lot. I know that even Dan Carey said it too, that he is doing everything he can to spread the message of Sierra Nevada through what he's doing. I don't mean like through the flavors he's making, but the way he makes beer and the responsibility he's taking toward the environment. I think he was very much inspired by what you're doing out there. And I think he would acknowledge that too. Yeah.
Dan and I worked together quite a bit. We wrote a chapter in the 3-volume Patrick Brewer set, and so we worked together quite a bit 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Also a very astute, great brewer.
Ken, I'd like to ask you one more question, and it's a big one. I think you've probably thought quite a bit about this yourself, but Sierra Nevada is a beacon for brewers everywhere. You're kind of the North Star from coast to coast. Everybody thinks about you, and they think about what you're doing, and they think about your products. They think about your technology. They think about your techniques. They set their watch to you. How does that factor into your brewery's long-term planning, knowing that the entire industry is watching?
No pressure.
I told you this was a big question.
It is a big one.
No, it's actually a good question. You know, we are doing our own thing, and hopefully it does resonate with the rest of the industry. We're trying to be respect beer and the legacy of brewing, and do as good of a job as we can in making beer. One of the things that I preach to my folks is that good is not good enough. That we're always trying to be better. We're never going to get there, but we can certainly continue to try. So I think just instilling that drive to improve the product, the process, your operations, how you live in this world. I think just for us, it's our own North Star to try to do that. And I guess I'm happy it resonates with other brewers around as well.
Every time I see a consolidation or a brewery selling, I always breathe a sigh of relief that it wasn't Sierra. Every single time. Not that I would blame Sierra Nevada for selling, because I understand the economics and the business of beer, but I know how much you guys take pride in what you do and how much you put into it. So I think every other brewer would say the same thing. I think just seeing you guys carry on and independent as you are is keeping us, it's refreshing to see that there's that potential to be that company in this industry.
Yeah, it's not been easy, but it has been something that we've had plenty of opportunities to exit over the years, and my sense is that as long as the next generation wants to be involved, let's see if we can keep the business going and keep it in family control.
Well, Ken, I think I speak for everybody at this table when I thank you for being kind and compassionate and forward-thinking. And I think I, along with every craft beer enthusiast in the United States, is extremely grateful for the fact that you're a tinkerer and that you have spent the last 40 plus years developing what is arguably the best beer catalog in the United States.
Well, thank you very much. Been a
And
pleasure.
I'm sitting in front of a glass with lacing from Celebration that is unparalleled. I'm not sure that there's any better foam anywhere than what's on this beer.
No, you've been talking about the foam for the better part of 2 weeks.
And I know Charlie would love to hear that too.
Yeah,
The Pope of Foam.
good. Yep.
So, Ken, I'm grateful for you, and I know that everybody at this table is also grateful for you, and I hope that you and your family have the very best Thanksgiving.
Well, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.
All right. That concludes this episode of Respecting the Beer. The producer of Respecting the Beer is David Kelso. Without David, there wouldn't be a show. Please join the Facebook group to get updates and to support the show over on Patreon, where you can listen to the bits that don't make it on the show and get access to specialty brewed beers available only to Patreon members. Links to both of these are in the show notes. Until next time, please remember to respect the beer.